heard they mad, I deserve to brag. I'm in my bottom line Birkin bag, and I ain't trying to waste a whole lot of time with this rhyme. But after this, we getting straight to the bottom line.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is season 2, episode 1 of The Expensive Truth. And I'm so excited to have my former collegiate head football coach at Boston College, Tom O'Brien. I know at first, this may be an odd pairing, but just continue to watch and tune in and listen to the content that we're going to discuss. We're going to talk a little bit about the recruiting process, talk about his illustrious 40 years as a head coach at the collegiate level, and just life. As he always told me 20 years ago or so, sports is a microcosm of life, and I'm just really excited to get started. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Coach Tom O'Brien. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jamal. And just like to say from the start, I'm sure your listeners don't know that your first 2 touchdowns as a collegiate were where? They were in South Bend.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, we won the game. That first time we won, your first 2 touchdown catches. There you go.
Yeah, okay. So since we're having a moment of clarity, that's actually when my love of the game actually heightened. Because as you know, I was focused more on basketball entering college, and because of your conditioning, your discipline, and your unrelentless pursuit of making sure that I stick, stay the course.
Right.
And even something as simple as like getting off the ball. I remember that. That was something. Did you know? I remember you screaming at me because I kept my first 2 preseason snaps. I was called offsides by the official. I went to the sideline crying like, I'm never going to play. They're going to take my scholarship away. So, but no, let's talk about that. So, I was doing a little bit of research, and I just was gushing about the 40 years. I knew prior that he was a major in the Marines, and something we also share in common is our love for the service of the community and Toys for Tot. That was something that I participated in during my time with New Balance. But just talk about how, I know you played at Navy, you was a defensive end back in the late 60s, I believe. Can you talk about what the moment was that, you knew that coaching would be a part of your future?
Really, I had no idea when I graduated. I went to the academy and got there. Well, to go back, when I was in high school, I grew up in Cincinnati. I played at Xavier High School. And in those days, there was 4 high schools. Purcell was to the east, Elder was to the west, Roger Bacon was the north, and Xavier was a private school. My dad would take us every year to watch. There was the 4 teams would play Thanksgiving weekend at Xavier University. And I got to grow up watching Roger Staubach play quarterback at Purcell High School, which is where I was supposed to go to my diocesan school, but my dad had gone to Xavier. So I went to Xavier, and that just set me on the road to get to the Naval Academy. Graduating from the academy, I chose the Marine Corps. I can remember it was February of 71, because that's when you make your service selection. And I was right at the height, and Vietnam wasn't going very well that time for us. And I remember calling home, and my mother says, well, what did you do? He says, well, I joined the Marines. She goes, oh my God, can you go back and change it? I go, no, Mom, it's too late. I'm going to be a Marine. So actually what happened is I spent some time at the academy. I spent some time in Quantico, where every Marine goes, officer. I was in California, then I was in Iwakuni, Japan. And I got a call from Captain Coppage, who was the athletic director at the Naval Academy. And there was always a Marine officer assigned to the staff. And in that case, Terry Murray was transferring out. And he asked me if I wanted to come back and be the Marine assigned to the staff at the academy. I had orders at that time to go to Cherry Point, North Carolina. Annapolis, Maryland, Cherry Point. I was single. I said, I'll start swimming tomorrow. So I went back to the academy, and I really still had no intention, it was a duty station. Annapolis was great to go back to. But then the more I thought about it, it seemed to be something that I could do, that I really enjoyed. I decided to get out of the Marine Corps after we had our first daughter. I met Jenny, my wife, there in Annapolis. She was a Navy nurse. And when I got out, Coach Wells said, I think you have a future in this profession. I'd like to hire you. And at that time, it was real unusual for anybody to get out of the service and go to work. And that wasn't what they espoused to. You were supposed to go be a career officer and everything. So I went and interviewed maybe 2 weeks at different things. And then, as I like to say, I decided I'd rather coach than work for a living. And so that's how I got into the coaching profession.
Yeah, no, one of the things that immediately I noticed upon, arriving on the campus of Boston College, and I remember prior to the gambling scandal just was dominating the headlines.
Mhm.
And, I remember riding the bike with the Red Cross. The change of culture that is kind of reminiscent. It sounds like with your background from being a militant. What was going through your mind, or what did you prioritize as far as what would be most important to change the culture? I know back during the huddles, we always talked about how important it was to win at home. Be physical, be so physical that the team that loses to you, they also loses their next game just as a collateral damage because of the battle that we engage in. Can you talk a little bit about the mindset that you approach to change the culture at BC? Because you certainly did that with going to 10 consecutive bowl games and having a remarkable record of 82.
Yeah, well, the first thing that I did is, first you have to get the lay of the land. And to go back to why Boston College, I had the opportunity to go to other Division I schools and a lot of 1AA schools that I interviewed with. But when I was at Virginia, we played Boston College, and I can't even remember what it was called, but because those names change all the time, it was a Fort Lauderdale Bowl. And got to meet Father Monin and got to be around Boston. This is when Tom Coughlin was the head coach, and got to be around Boston College. And as I was talking to those other places, I said to Jenny, I said, Boston College would be a good fit for me, being a Jesuit guy, coming from the Jesuit high school. It just one of those things that I thought it'll never happen, but that would be, something I'd like to do. Then when the opportunity came up, certainly there were some issues there. The first thing I think we had to do was to change the mindset of the football team. And, I don't think you were on campus then, I know you weren't, but there was a guy named Robert Watt, who was a clinical psychologist, basically, who was a Boston College graduate, who was, I think, an All-American football player at BC, played some in the NFL. And he came in and had some sessions with the football team. And, one of the things that as my conversation with him, as I interviewed players as we started out, everybody was going to do, we were going to do this, we were going to do that, we were going to do this. And we came up with the Livet statement, don't talk about it, be about it. So that was the foundation for the team. The second thing I had to do was put together a football staff and find the guys that were going to not only coach these guys, but be leaders. And I think those were the two most important things I had to do upon getting to Boston College was to change the mindset of the football team and, take responsibility for their actions. It's not somebody else's fault all the time. You got to look at yourself in the mirror and are you doing what you're supposed to be doing for this football program? So don't talk about it, be about what we want to do and what we want to get done. And then, put together a football staff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was actually something, not to get too far ahead, but there was something that, I am eager to discuss with you and to get your thoughts on is the transition. There's a stark parallel to soldiers returning from war, reingratiating themselves back into society, and also athletes transitioning to life after sports. there's a lot of struggles that, I know you was big on accountability, which is, one of the key ingredients to be successful in the sports world and also in life. But there is a distinct difference once you go into corporate America or start working. It changes from a self-accountability with a predominantly alpha group to, in short, save your butt.
Yeah.
I know that was something that a lot of athletes, including myself, struggled with. What is some techniques or some things that helps you kind of transition? And do players call you, and do you share advice as far as how to make that transition?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it equates. I would never equate anybody in battle to anything because I think that's a separate entity.
Right, I agree with that.
I mean, you just can't. Bullets flying over your head isn't the same thing as somebody taking a cheap shot at you on the football field or whatever. But I think that what we tried to do, obviously, and maybe I didn't do a good enough job with some of you, is that to give you skills so that once you moved on, that you were able to succeed in business and succeed in anything you wanted to do in life, because that was my goal. My goal was to make sure that when you left my program, that you would be a contributing member to society. However it worked, that I would have given you the in the Marine Corps, the ethos of the Marine Corps, I always fall back on that, was honor, courage, and commitment. And what's honor? That's, well, does your compass point true north? That's who you are. That's what your being is. That's what your mother and father gave you. That's what your experiences in school and maybe your football coach gave you. Courage is nothing but honor and action. I mean, to live up to those ideals that you hold for yourself and even hold for somebody else. And I'll relay a story to you here in a second about that. And then commitment is, that's like that Jeopardy champ that used to always go all in. You can't save one chip. You got to be all in with everything that you go. And this all comes about, some of it, when I remember right before I graduated at the Naval Academy, Admiral Calvert was the superintendent, and he always gave the last class to the graduating class. And most of us, were just there waiting, it's going to be an hour, we'll get out of here. He's going to say the same thing, but he made a statement to us graduating about going and being young officers. And he talked about the fact that you think you're going to be responsible for your people, for your materials, for your money and stuff. He said, you're not going to be just responsible, you're going to be held accountable. So that's where the accountable part comes with me. That I think, the more that people would be accountable for their actions, the better off we'd all be.
Absolutely. And no, that was something that you did a phenomenal job of. And, I want to definitely say, you made not only a better player than me, but a better man. And you did that by just, like you was talking earlier, about changing the mindset and not thinking about yourself, but the greater good and how that could benefit the team. Can you take the viewers inside a recruitment process when you guys identify a player that would be great for your program? What does that look like as far as the film sessions or just in a meeting conversation?
Well, what we did is each assistant coach would have a geographical area, and depending upon where we were and what school, whether I was at the Naval Academy, we recruited nationally because we were a national school. Virginia, we kind of went a little bit north, a little bit south, but the state was really important. When I went to Boston College as a head coach, the thing that I think the big draw there was it was a Jesuit Catholic high school. So there's a lot of good Catholic high schools in this country. And there's a lot of good leagues, but you always start with your local area first. Guys had Massachusetts and Connecticut and New England, but then, we went heavily into New Jersey. We went heavily into Pennsylvania, and then we would go nationally to the Jesuit high schools or Catholic high schools, because number one, we knew that they would have the academics to get into Boston College and probably would have some type of association to go there, because Notre Dame was the only Catholic college other than the Boston College playing at the highest level. So what happens then is the assistant coach would then go out. He would come back with the guys he thought fit the academic profile, the type of character that we wanted, and plus football skills, because those three things are what, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do academically, if you're in trouble with the dean of students, you're not getting on the football field, so you got to take care of that business first. So, I mean, those were the three important things we look for. What they would do is they'd come back and they would grade a film. Then they would pass it on to the position coach. And if the position coach then liked it, he would give it to the coordinator, and the coordinator would sign off on it. So that was like the process. We had like 3 different eyes go on it before they said to me, we'd like to offer this kid and, go from there. So, I mean, that's how we got around to it. And, I would look at different people here and there, and basically if there was a tie, or, the position coach won, but the coordinator didn't, or the coordinator did, but the recruiting coach didn't, or excuse me, not the recruiting coach, but the recruiting coordinator didn't, then I would have to step in and put my vote one way or another. Yeah, this is a kid that we ought to take, or this is a kid we ought to just pass on.
Now, is there a similar process as far as selection? Your selection of coaches for your staff as well. You talk about how that process is executed.
No, I think what I did, coaching staffs changed from the years that I started as a head coach till I ended, and now there's a gazillion coaches on the staff. But I think what I started out doing is I think you have to have, if there's a staff of 5 coaches on each side, I think you have to have 2 guys that are really, really, really solid football coaches. Mm-hmm. They have to be the strength of the staff, like your quarterback coach, offensive coordinator / or your offensive line coach. I mean, those would be the 2 guys that I would go to on offense. You want a secondary guy, and then some other position coach on defense, your coordinator. Then what I would look for is a lot of guys that are great recruiters, guys that maybe weren't, have been in coaching that long, but that they were super recruiters. They were hard, they would go out. I always look for smarter people than me. I thought if I could hire smarter people than me, then, I'd have a pretty good staff. And not that took that wasn't a high bar to set for people, but they, to do that. And I always looked for good family people, very energetic people, and people that weren't afraid to work hard. And so then, with that kind of parameter in mind, I would try to put a staff together. And, when I was an assistant coach, I worked for Coach Welsh for 20 some years at Navy in Virginia. And every day I went to work, I tried to be a better coach than him. I got nowhere near that. He's in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, that was, everybody needs goals, and they need to see something every day to look at. That was my goal, to be better than a football coach than him. And so, I tried to hire guys that had those same aspirations.
Yeah, were there any coaches that, because I know the turnover coaches are pretty high, especially when they have aspirations to become head coach or even coach, in the NFL. Is there a coach or 2 or a story you can share about how A, you wanted to coach, but they got away, or B, you wanted to coach and was able to convince them here was a better place for ultimately where they was trying to go?
Well, I think I can speak to both my staff at BC and NC State. When I came to BC, I hired people who, some of them I knew, some of them I didn't know. And at the time when I came to BC, I tried to hire Dana Bible, who I knew, and he wouldn't. Yeah, but he had a job, and he wasn't interested in coming to Boston College. After my first 2 years, I decided, there was we were 4-7, 4-7. I think some guys decided, this isn't where I wanted to coach. And there was a couple guys on the staff that I thought, you're not really the type of person and fit that I thought would be, and I think it'd be best for you to move on. And so then when I changed the staff, I think that's when we took off and got better. There's always coaches that can leave for what they perceive to be a better job. My only thing with the coach is if you want to leave, I have no problem. Let's talk about it. Why? Can I keep you? Is there a reason? If not, if you want to move on, that's fine. I will do everything I can to help you move on. What I don't want to do is find out from somebody else that you're looking for a job. Come tell me what you want to do. I'll help you. That's fine. And then we'll move on from that. When I left in Boston College and went to NC State, I wanted to take Spaz, but Spaz, he was in, his wife didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay there. When I was at Boston College, Mike London wanted to leave and go back to Virginia. I would have rather him stay on the staff, but he went back. Al Golden left to be a coordinator, which was a good job for him. So there's guys that you want to hire that sometimes it doesn't work out. There's guys that leave that you want to keep, but I think that's the coaching profession. And then the hardest thing to do obviously is make a staff change, but sometimes that has to be done. And luckily for me and you and everybody else at Boston College, it worked out.
No, absolutely. And I remember fondly about 10 years ago, probably about 8 or 9 of us, Trevor, Will, Keith, Chris, maybe even B-Flow. But I want to talk to you about B-Flow as well. But in short, I remember we just was all reminiscing back and just talking about how at the moment we didn't think we had this great coaching staff. But we had a lot of stuff said underneath our breath. But as you see, as time went on and we all matured and see where ultimately the landing spots all these coaches have been, that's when we gave you all the flowers, if you would. Because the dirty little secret, amongst us was like, you didn't talk much. And I remember always telling folks, in like every time we surpass each other, he just says cereal or just very minimal words. Was that a strategy or was that just your personality? Because ultimately, it was a recipe, a winning recipe. Because again, we went to 10 consecutive bowl games, and we won a lot of games.
Yeah, no, I just. Maybe one thing I would change, I could probably be a little more personal, but I think that's what's, I was always so focused on what we had to do and how we had to get it done and how I could best get it done and be accomplished. I had a wife and 3 kids, and I'm thinking, I got to provide for them. I got to get all this done. And looking back, maybe things could have changed that way, but it is what it is. And, there's, I'm not going to go into all of them, but there are certain things that I would like to do over again in life. But it is what it is. I moved on and do the best I can now.
Absolutely, and it's like as each day passed, honestly, it deepens my respect for you, and it was a lot of hard decisions back then. And I didn't like most of them. A lot of people don't like them. Ultimately, it was for the greater good, and it worked out in our favor. And I remember specifically Coach Bible one day just told me, "Are we winning? You're winning? You're winning?" Because I was like, "This is not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. I want to have fun. It's not fun." And he told me just candidly, we won, right?
Yeah.
So we have fun. You have fun. We won.
Right.
Yeah, I understand, but as the months went on, yes, if you're winning, because it's so hard to win, and to just think that you won over 100 games, 115 games during your time. Can you try to describe to the viewing audience how difficult it is to win, just as far as the preparation and just like you're saying, it takes somebody who's so meticulous, disciplined. Non-negotiables are always in play. Can you just kind of just try to paint that picture? so people can kind of appreciate, or maybe they can't, but definitely would love.
Well, I think the first thing to go back to the assistant coaches. I mean, I really had a great staff, and they're the guys that spent more time with you as a position player. That's what I miss about being a head coach. I had so many other duties, and everybody's pulling at you so many different ways. When you're assistant coach, you sit in a room with 8, 10 guys, you get to know them, you kid back and forth, you cry, you laugh, you be happy, you have all those experiences, but you kind of as a head guy, you get away from all of that. So I think a lot of it has to do with the assistants. And then I think we prepared awful well. I'll go back to my philosophy. More people lose than win. I mean, you can look at games, there are times when you get beat and you can stand up and say, okay, that was a better football team. We played as good as we could play. We did everything right. We had no pre-snap penalties. We had no post-snap penalties that kill you. We didn't turn the ball over. They were a better football team. But if you look and watch a game, you can probably point when the team loses to 3 things they did that were not very smart, whether it was a penalty, whether it was a turnover, whether it was a blown coverage because they weren't doing the right thing. They lost the game. So I always believed in giving people the chance to lose. We were going to be solid, and we weren't going to beat ourselves, and they were going to lose if we gave them enough chance to do it. And sure enough, whatever you said, 100 and some people lost.
No, absolutely. One of the games on that note, definitely wanted to cover with you was the Miami Hurricanes, which is easy, in my opinion, the greatest college football team ever assembled. When you just talk about Clinton Portis, Frank Gore, Willis McGahee, the wide receivers was Andre Johnson. You had Santana Moss, you had Jeremy Shockey and Bubba Franks as a tight end. We still talk about often that the interception that Ed Reed, safety, rest in peace, John Taylor. Do you lose sleep over that game, or is that something you just look back and say, hey, that was just part of the process?
No, you look back and think, well, it wasn't meant to be. I mean, we had everything there to make the play. And, by a fluke of nature, whatever it is, we don't get in. It was similar to, I don't know if you were there were you there my second year? Were you a freshman?
I was talking about that when we was up 35-7 at halftime. And then
yeah, I know the one you're talking about, Miami. I'm going back to the Notre Dame game when Mike Cloud didn't get in the end. They said he didn't get in the end zone. I mean, yeah, he's in the end zone. I mean, too bad we didn't have the cameras in the review at the side, because that's another game there that, I think that the call or whatever didn't go our way. But, I remember sometimes when I was talking with Coach Belichick about the Patriots, and the first year they won the Super Bowl, he goes, everything went our way, every call went our way. I go, yeah, but there's times when everything doesn't go your way too. So if you're around long enough, I think everything evens out.
No, that's true. I remember even the financial where they say people remember their losses 2 times. They remember their wins.
Right.
How do you handle losses, whether in life or just in general? I know I really appreciate you talking about, kind of your challenge of just finding balance both professionally and personally. I know you used to run a lot around the reservoir. That was something I really expected in my kind of mimic. How do you kind of, do that, these days, or have you used to do it, during that time period?
Well, I think, I tried to be disciplined with myself, and I had to lead, and the staff, and to filter down to the players. And that's why, as Coach Bible would say, you won, enjoy it, enjoy it tonight, but come Monday, we're going to move on. We're going to turn the page. And I think you have to do that with a great win, and you have to do that with an awful tough loss, because if come Wednesday, you're still talking about what happened last Saturday. You're not focused on what you have to do to win that weekend. And then I think once the season's over, then you can sit down and kind of, relive what was really a good moment or really a down moment. But I think most people try to forget the down stuff, and talk about all the good things that have happened. So I think, there is a certain discipline to it. And I think that's why college football coaches harp on it, because you can't be focused on your next appointment if in the middle of the week you're still complaining about what happened the last Saturday. That means you haven't turned the page, you haven't got your focus in the right direction, and then something's going to happen where you'll be offside twice your first scrimmage because you're not thinking.
Oh, that's true.
Or as Spaz said, if you're thinking, you're stinking. You can't think.
Coach Spaz, man, I remember vividly Coach Spaz. He was on living on the sidelines because one of our receivers got knocked out of the game or something like that. And he was like, "We gotta get him back. We gotta."
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, that's the philosophy."
Yeah.
But no, one of the lessons that I always share with athletes is your deposit story about how each practice serves as an opportunity to make a deposit within the bank. You use that now as a bank account. How if you put $10 in that bank account, then at the end of the week you would comfortably go to the counter and withdraw $10.
Right.
The landscape is a little bit different now. If you was coaching today with the emergence of the NIL rule where players get paid for their image and likeness, in addition to the transfer quota, I mean, how would you handle that?
Well, I think the NIL, was destined to happen. I mean, it's right that people ought to make it. And that, I think that's, as in a lot of cases, it's a first-year program. I think you're probably going to have to wait a few years to judge it because, I'm sure there's some people that threw a lot of money into it that are going to sit back and say, maybe this wasn't worth it, or maybe I should have invested in this guy or thrown my money to a couple different guys. So I think, that's something that has to play out over the next couple of years. The transfer portal, I wouldn't be in favor of that because I think there's some good and bad. I think, it seems to me now that if you correct a kid, if you holler at a kid or something, the next day he's in the transfer portal. It's like, come on, son, grow up. And in the end, it's constructive criticism. I always said, don't take anything personal, but we're trying to help you be a better person through this whole process. And I think I see too much of that going on. I think it's definitely a thing with quarterbacks. They're always trying to find a place where they can go play. But on the flip side, I think, bringing the quarterback back, if I don't want to sit on the bench for 4 years and not get a chance to play, if I can go tomorrow because this school's got an opening. So, what I would encourage the players to do is make sure, and you have to be touchy because I don't know all the rules now. Make sure you have an idea where you want to go, or maybe somebody wants you. Because if you get in the transfer portal, I know the Citadel's here in Charleston where I've retired. As soon as you go in the transfer portal, you're off there. You're done with the team. You don't go on training tape. You don't do this or that. Now, if nobody picks you up, what are you going to do? I mean, because I think a lot of people treat it that way, that, okay, you've decided you don't want to go here. You're not going to be on our rolls anymore. So, I think that's a drawback too for the kid is they go in. And, on the other side, for some coaches, a lot of guys just use that because if you're going into a new program, you can get good really quick because you might be able to find 5 or 6 players that come in that you couldn't. At Boston College, we were a developmental program. We took guys and they, as every year that we had 5th and 6th year seniors, being the backbone of the football team were our best years, which happened as I started going in year 4, 5, 6, 7, and on. They were senior foot. Now, if you're a really good freshman, you mentioned Blackman earlier, guys like that come in that can help you right away. And at certain positions, they could play for you. But, so, in a coach side, you can get better real quick if you can get 5 or 6 guys to plug in the slots that you want, or you could get, the backup quarterback at Clemson. He went to Duke, he went to Appalachia State. He's finally starting at Appalachia. They keep bouncing around and finding a program. But I think, after you do your first one, you got to sit out unless there's some other reason. So, with everything else, there's good and bad. It's another thing that's going to have to play its way out. But as I said, I think it just makes it too easy for somebody to just move on without standing up and saying, I got to fight through this a little bit. It's kind of like homesickness. Dwan Daniels, your good buddy, that was the most homesick person I've ever had in my whole life. I mean, he almost made me cry when he came in. He wanted to leave. He wanted to do that. And I had to fight to get him to stay for a whole year. Because I said, if you give it a year, you give it 1 year and you want to leave, that's fine with me. But we went through this recruiting process. We made the decision. We were going to come to Boston. God, in 4 months, you can't decide this isn't the place for you. I mean, you got to give it a chance. My daughter was the same way. My daughter, when we went to Boston, she wanted to stay at UVA, go to UVA. She went to UVA, but she had been 4 years removed. All her high school friends, it wasn't the same. She then transferred back to Boston College. But I said, you're going to stay. Yeah, same thing. You wanted to do this. We went through this 4 years. Give it a year. And then I remember she was in Boston and it was the St. Patrick's Day parade. She was up. She goes, Dad, I want to come home. I go, fine. I'll see if, we can get you into, but you gave it a chance, and I don't think enough people are given a chance to the football programs now.
Can you just comment on how, he's currently the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders, and also your thoughts on like Brian Flores being the head coach of the Dolphins? Could you ever thunk it? I'm just so proud. I'm always beaming when I see them, whether on TV or just reading about them on the internet. Did you ever see that vision for either one of them?
I don't know if personally I did, but I mean, thought they individually did, but I always felt that any of the kids that we had at Boston College had that within them to go on and be successful in whatever they chose to do. I mean, I was at the Hall of Fame this past weekend, or not this past weekend, but a couple of weeks ago when Timmy Hasselback and Will Blackman went in, and Brooks Orpik went in. There was a soccer girl that ended up playing on the French national team. And, just to see the Boston College kids get up, I call them kids because I'm an old guy, but, get up and speak and talk about their life experiences and their experiences at Boston College. And, I think, it all plays in that it gives you the toolbox to be successful. And, we just tried to hone that a little bit more and make it maybe a little rougher than maybe you got in the classroom. But because, we felt the practice field was our classroom, and, learned a lot on the football field. But, the only thing that I ever wished for my football players was A, that they got a degree, B, that if they got married, they were the greatest husband on the face of the earth. And if they had children, they were the best father that any child could ever had. And I think if they could accomplish that, I mean, you can accomplish all those other things, but to me, that was the most important thing. And then whatever you achieve, I think the sky was the limit for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And just a couple more, and then I'll let you go. But I'm going to show you a picture, and I just want you to
I'll put my glasses on.
But what was it about this guy right here that you wanted to make him offer him a scholarship out of Brockton High School? What was it about this kid? Because I seen this other night And I said, I gotta show coach.
Yeah, no, I think that, as we talked about before, you had the academics, you certainly had the character. And then, your football abilities were good, but you also played, but you were a great basketball player.
Oh my goodness, can you please say that again?
Well, no, you were a good basketball player and you ran track. So, I mean, I wasn't into these kids that pigeonholed themselves into one sport. I like people that did a lot of different things, that had a lot of different skills and life experiences along with the package of academics, because the most important thing is we wanted to recruit people that were able to succeed at Boston College. It didn't do us any good to recruit people that were going to flunk out of school. Certainly we would provide all the help that we could to help them to attain that goal. But then, tremendous character individual. So you put those three together and you're the package. That's what, as I said about Timmy Hasselbeck, in the letter that I wrote is that, when he was redshirt and wasn't playing, he volunteered to play special teams. He volunteered to run down on kickoffs. Some of the injuries that he played through, and how tough an individual he was, he kind of became the template for the person that we thought we needed to succeed at Boston College. And then I did tell the story on Blackman. I don't know if you remember, he showed up from his recruiting trip with a Wisconsin jersey on or sweatshirt. And I kicked him out of the bowl practice. I said, you go to the BC store, get a BC sweatshirt. If not, you get out of here. I'm not wearing that trash in here.
Now that is the Coach O'Brien I know. But no, Tim Hasselbeck, man, he was a legend.
Yeah.
He actually was the first football player outside of Brockton High that I had the pleasure to watch. And I thought he was like John Elway.
Yeah, no.
He had a gun. He was really smart. Didn't have an opportunity to play on the collegiate level. He just confirmed everything I thought, man. But I'm just so happy. Oh, Will Blackman. Talk a little bit about Will Blackman, because I know you always have some great Will Blackman stories.
No, I think that was the best one. But I think the thing that you talk about being a selfless player is, his senior year, he probably could have been an All-American corner, but we were going into the ACC and you were gone and we need some guys at wide receiver, and said to him, we think we can use your talents, because he's the first guy probably since you were there was returning punts and kickoffs for touchdowns. In fact, he holds all the records. That we need to get the ball in your hands if we're going to win in the ACC. But we said to him, we will make you the nickel back, so that you will also, he's a two-way player. So he played some corner, he played some nickelback on defense, but then he became a really good receiver and a threat, because anytime he had the ball in the hand, he had a chance to score. So the thing that he said that I didn't remember is he was an English major. He might have been the only English major I ever coached in my life.
He's a super intelligent guy, man.
Yeah.
And I knew from snap number one, that he was going to be quite the player.
Right.
I'm proud of his, collegiate career and professional career, and also right now he's doing the media, he's doing the wine business.
Oh yeah, I told him on the wine tours. He told me he's going to start doing tours. I told him I had just gotten back from one in France with a chef, so I said, "Send me your material. I'd be interested in taking a wine trip with you somewhere."
Well, one question regarding I did want to ask. So, there's a lot of everybody got aspirations. Both players and coaches. I was unaware about how intense or real the aspiration of coaches was until I got to the collegiate level. Because once you get to the collegiate level, it's no longer a game; it's business, as Damien Woody famously coined in one of our first couple of practices during double session. And you got a guy like Will Blackman, a super athletic, very versatile player, who play on both sides of the dimension. Being selfless and having him, be a contributor both on offense and defense. How was that conversation like when when he could have just been strictly a cornerback for 4 years or 3 years, however long he was there. And then that kind of would have increased his stock value But I mean, is that something that comes to mind when you gotta have those conversations, make those decisions? Because I mean, ultimately it worked out for both because of what transpired afterwards. But I mean, is that something that even comes into the thought process when you're having those conversational decisions when there's an individual players and their aspirations and you're asking them to do something for the greater good?
Yeah, I know it's hard for a lot of, because they envision themselves as being this person and doing these skills and what they have to do. One of the things that I did with the assistant coaches after spring practice every year, I would have the defense rate the top 22 people on offense and the offense rate the top 22 people on defense. And I would have the offense rate who they thought were their top 22 and the defense top 22. So I'd have these 4 rankings from it's amazing how line coaches look at skilled people look at line, but it made them pay attention to everybody else. But then, you get into a situation where you see, well, maybe somebody can help us somewhere else and do this because nobody thinks he's any good, or everybody thinks he's the greatest thing, since sliced bread, so, that kind of helps those decisions, but it's still an individual. I mean, I've had that conversation with more than one player and they've refused, which is fine. Because I said, I'm not going to make you do it. I'm throwing it out to you. I think this will help the football team, but it's up to you. You go think about it. You come back and see me in a day or two and we'll talk about it and see what we want to do and how we're going to go forward. And, if you want to stay at your position, nobody's going to be down on you for that. That's your decision. I'm just letting you know that I think this will help the football team. And most times I can persuade somebody to do it.
Well, I want to say you said that you have an option, but I mean, you have to have a very abnormal, optimistic view of yourself and your own confidence to not go against something that you're offering, especially at those tender age or formidable age of 19. So, finally, here's something I wanted to. I got this made, so when I'm conducting these interviews, my persona is bottom line Burke, and not sure what side you're with, but this hoodie right here, I'm gonna mail to you. But
great.
Bottom line Burke.
Yep, there you go. I need a sweatshirt down here every once in a while.
From that stoop down to Lenox, my mama argued with me for like 200 minutes, drinking brews till I'm finished. To the news, them interviews, they knew my position. I could lie for free, but that truth is expensive. So visit my site, yo, get an insight. What my living was like was bigger than life. Different women spending the night, no children in sight. I got fed up, but kept my head up like I'm willing to bite. My life doing bike tricks, touchdowns for Mike Vick. Stop on a dime and split right soon as your eye twitch. I was quite quick, not many was like this. Waxing them like a candle, I guess I was quite lit. I heard they mad, I deserve to brag. I'm in my bottom line Birkin bag, and I ain't trying to waste a whole lot of time with this rhyme. But after this, we getting straight to the bottom line.